You talk about a smooth transition, son.
Buddy,
You know,
I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
Really, I've never seen anything like
I never heard anything like it either. You know, yeah. Get more buttons and knobs than 3. I get confused. Jimmy Leach, investigators with us. Good morning, right here.
Good morning, Steve.
WNWS FM and WTJS FM in Jackson, Tennessee, reaching all over the world. We're on Tennessee Underground on Facebook, TugNews.com out there on the World Wide Web.
Yes, sir.
And
YouTube,
on
YouTube
the
TV
YouTube
channel. Yes, sir.
I'm not used to this video thing yet, and I forget that, so I wave at the camera. So here we go. Jimmy Leach, investigator with us. I want to talk to you just for a moment about the FBI, and it's kind of an interesting thing. We've got protests against, mass vaccination mandates and also critical race theory, discussion about curriculum. Some of them have gotten heated. In one case, got violent. And now suddenly, the Department of Justice says the FBI is going to take jurisdiction over this. And a lot of other people that are involved in law enforcement say, wait just a minute. This is a local, county, city, whatever issue, and not the federal government to come in here and police school board meetings.
Yeah, I saw something where
that these people were being labeled domestic terrorists or whatever. Right?
Yeah, and one thing I saw, they were tying it back into interstate commerce, which of course brings into fist.
Because they feel like these are coordinated efforts, coordinated protests.
Yeah.
In the sense of sharing information or whatever.
Yeah.
But I just found that odd in all the priorities of the FBI that suddenly the Department of Justice says, well, this is domestic terrorism, and so we're going to start monitoring school board meetings, or whatever they're going to do, or claim jurisdiction. When it would look like if you get a fight at a school board meeting, well, that's up to the sheriff's department, whoever's got the constables there, or the local police, or however they have security at meetings. And I've been to some hot school board meetings down through the years over controversial building schools or raising taxes or whatever, and this and that and the other. Where you suddenly look around, I remember a school board meeting turned around one day years ago, the guy was poking them with a walking stick, and he said, from now on, we're checking all sticks at the door.
Yeah. I think everybody wonders about it. Okay. But I want to tell you something I've noticed over my brief.
Now, because you have dealt with the FBI, and you do get into jurisdictional situations. You've been with the TBI, and you've been with local police and whatever, and say who's in charge of this investigation, right?
Yeah.
And at what point do they get involved?
Well, it seems to me over the years I've noticed that if the feds want to get involved,
okay,
they can figure out a federal violation somewhere. And on the flip side of that, if they don't, I remember calling the FBI agent one time. We had a girl stabbed 27 times on a national wildlife refuge,
which was theirs.
Federal wildlife,
right.
And we called the FBI. But murder's not a federal crime. We said, but it's on a wildlife refuge. It happened on federal property. They said, murder's not a federal crime. I said, I get it.
Okay.
We had a bad murder with no suspect.
Okay.
But they.
So you were looking for some investigative help, and they said, we got other things.
Yeah, and frankly, if I was in the school board, like back in the old days, if I've been in the school board in Hardeman County and they started threatening to whip me, I'd much rather seen Delta 6 show up than I had the FBI.
Yeah, that's right. There we go. Well, I was going to ask you one other thing, because he's back. Dog the Bounty Hunter has gotten visible out there. Of course, he's the guy that you can see at 40 feet, and you assume it's him. If you've got a guy on the law enforcement scene, that's got long blonde hair down his back, that's Dog the Bounty Hunter. But he's back.
I saw him digging up some evidence or something here the other day on TV, which is very good. I'm sure that wasn't contaminated. Well, work crime scene, I'm sure. And of course, the people at the campground wouldn't talk to anybody after he got through getting all the TV cameras on. But now his daughter has come forth, and I mean, this is going to shock you. She says she questions his sincerity about when he's trying to work on this movie. And she also said she don't know where all this money's coming from to do all these productions and everything.
Okay.
But now, in fairness to the dog, they've been into it because he didn't show up he didn't invite her to his wedding. I think is what it was. So there's some problems there. But
her mother died.
She did question his sincerity, and I don't know. It's his daughter. Dr. Phil's got on there living now, so he'll get worked out.
They've been looking for this person of interest now, even in Tennessee, right? I mean, they've got some.
They're looking everywhere. Yeah, they up in the mountains where Eric Rudolph was for years. Okay. And all this. But, Steve, the thing about it is, to the police, what we're seeing, of course, the media's got on it so hot. They got to put something on TV. They've turned this into a soap opera, a tragedy into a soap opera. Okay. What they're seeing is what we see every day. Okay. People tell you something today, and 2 weeks from now, they say, well, that wasn't what I meant, or I didn't say, we're used to it. It's nothing new to us.
Well, it just does get kind of different. Had a school shooting yesterday that's different. A lot of the school shootings have been, a disgruntled student or students got issues, whatever, coming in planning. This was a disagreement fight at a school that apparently escalated, and somebody had a gun.
Right.
And 4 people get shot, 1 critical, and a 17-year-old, this Arlington, Texas. But that's kind of interesting because we've had incidents here where students are showing up with a gun in a backpack.
Yes.
Right.
Sometimes it's a real young student in 1 or 2 situations, well, several that I can think of, but 1 or 2
This
right
young
here.
man was 17. I think.
17 or 18.
Okay.
17 or 18.
Maybe.
And now here's his family, his mother, I think it was speaking
All right.
this morning. I saw her before I came here, and she said she was tearful, very tearful. Of course, this kid, he turned himself in with a family member.
Okay.
Okay, and he supposedly went to his house when this was over. Now, I'm
All
sort of laying a foundation here.
Okay.
And mother said, look, that boy had been beat up, he'd been robbed. They were making fun of him because he had nicer clothes than some of them did, had a nicer car than some of them did. They've been picking on him, robbing. And we don't defend him carrying a gun. He should not have carried a gun, but he was defending himself. And if you know, I've done a lot of work with school violence,
Right.
and written a book on it. And
Right.
and bullying is one thing you hear. And sad, and this
Well,
mother brought this up. She
yeah.
said, you hear about kids get bullied in school till they commit suicide. You hear that?
Right.
So,
Okay.
we'll
So
see
she's saying it has background.
we'll see what the
Yeah,
evidence what the evidence shows.
That book on school violence, by the way, is
Not in our school, not in our
school.
school as well. Yeah.
got some on workplace violence as well. Jim Leach is JIM when you look on Amazon. Jim LEACH. Jim Leach on any of those books. Executed a man in Missouri. He had been there for a long time. He killed 3 people in a convenience store robbery decades ago. Pope got involved in that. Members of Congress got involved. And I'm not sure that Pope was responding to this. The Pope has come out feeling that it should be the position of the church to oppose executions all over the world.
Yeah,
And so,
yeah.
and so when one comes to their attention, there's a communication that
I
comes.
think you're right.
But this man's name was Ernest Lee Johnson. It wasn't, but Missouri, and there had been many appeals of this, and so the courts had looked at this time and time again,
Yeah.
and cleared the way for this execution.
And it's he's been executed.
Yeah, it has been.
He's
Yes,
gone.
right. Yeah.
What they were saying that his mental capacity, his
Right.
diminished mental capacity. That's what the state.
But then the courts had looked at this, and like I said, this case goes back decades ago, and he killed 3 people.
Yeah.
At a store years ago.
And 12 good and true jurors found him guilty and gave him the death penalty.
And multiple courts had reviewed this.
Yes.
And so the governor of Missouri.
By the time you get to execution, that's gone through all kinds of appeals. Any
Okay.
state. Yeah.
All right. What do we find out about this Amtrak situation, that shooting the other day on an Amtrak?
It was a routine check of Amtrak. They had got some information. They got a task force out there in Tucson, and it was 2 DEA agents, and then there was a Tucson police officer until he got shot. And the Tucson police officer, by the way, was outside on the loading dock or whatever.
Right.
When he heard the shooting, he flew and he advanced on the gunfire, which
Okay.
takes a lot of guts. But basically, they had some report about some stuff. This is all over 5 pounds of pot. Okay.
Oh, is that what it was?
They get the guy, the one article I read, all of them didn't say the same thing. One article I read said they got the guy off the train, talked to him, they saw him move some packages, and he said, no, they're not my packages, and that's where the dope was.
Okay.
They were going to get a search warrant to go in his backpack. I think that's where they found the 2.5
Okay.
kilos or whatever. And then while they're doing all this, one guy just pulls out the gun and starts shooting,
Okay.
kills the DEA.
Yeah.
And the DEA agent, by the way, had been an officer of the Nashville Metropolitan Police Department, Nashville
Wow.
Metro.
Okay.
Before he went to work for the DEA. Very tragic, very tragic. And
On the flip side, we had officers killed there. On the flip side of this thing, it was an unusual story out of Paris, France, of
Yes.
a retired officer that came under investigation. Apparently, they had asked him for some items. He kills himself, but he leaves a note acknowledging that he had been a serial rapist and murderer. Right?
yes, it was called La Grele. You didn't know I could speak
Yeah,
French.
you
It meant
very well.
it meant
Yeah.
a marked killer.
Okay.
He was good. They think he's good for 4 murders, including a young girl and 6 rapes. And he killed himself after they called him in and took a DNA sample from him.
Okay.
And the
So he knew
DNA
that-
turned
he
out
was
positive.
wow.
It turned out positive.
Wow.
You remember the Golden State Killer that we talked about?
Right,
He was
yeah.
one of the most prolific in
Right.
the history of the United States. He's a police
He was
officer
a
in 2 different
law enforcement
departments.
officer too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know,
In a way. But I'm going to tell you, people that are hung up like that,
all right.
they, even if they're not in that business, they will study enough. Like, when they're part of the evolutionary process, they'll torture little animals and things to see what hurts the most because they enjoy inflicting pain.
Wow.
They're into it. It's 100%. But you know, if you look at a police officer's characteristics, especially you look at workplace violence.
Right.
If I gave you 25 characteristics of a typical workplace violence offender, I won't nail a lot of police officers.
Right.
Then, because you know.
Do you remember one thing? Chief Weiser did a presentation the other day and talked about still concerned about post-traumatic stress.
Yes.
Number of suicides, number of people that are retiring from this business, difficulty it is to attract people to get into local police work. He said people want to get into law enforcement now. He said I advise you to go state or federal or do something else. Don't, because this is the toughest level, local level, toughest level right now.
Yeah, I would agree with it.
Okay.
Yes, agree with it. There's an article I just downloaded this morning. I had a chance to read it. It said most of the problems we're coming up with, and if you think about this, most of the problems we're seeing where people are throwing rocks at the police come from traffic stops and domestics, which we've talked about a lot.
Okay.
Dangerous stuff, and that's the officer out here on the street doing that.
Okay. This is WNWS FM in Jackson. Jimmy Leach, the investigator, with us. We're on the way to a conversation with Tom Scuteri from the Pentagon. Tom Scuteri is with us. Jimmy's good to see you. This is WNWS FM in Jackson.